Hey everybody, welcome back to the Spin Rack. This is Mars here. I'm here with
Petey.
We're going to be talking about the announcement that they're going to be making at the San Diego Comic-Con about the new Absolute Universe. So here is Scott Snyder and Joshua Wilson talking about
Williamson.
talking about this.
Here we go. Maybe we can hear it.
It's October, but I'm doing it with an old friend, Scott Snyder.
Hey man, God, you look so fancy. You're freaking me out.
Well, this is my show, and you're my guest.
Is this double
I'm the host
speed?
of my guest, so we're here to talk about comic books. So let's talk to
Of course
everybody
it
about
is.
All In.
This is something we've been working on
Oh,
dude,
so
relax,
excited to
man.
bring it to you. So what is All In? Like, All In is the biggest.
I can't
initiative
tie. I
done in
can't.
the better
I
part of a
can't
decade.
sync it to the thing. No, I
Dude,
can.
you just say put it on. You don't say anything. You just go. You know what I'm trying to say? Probably if you stop and say, yo, we need to put this on, we need to watch it. You know, let's hear the video.
Hey everybody, my name is Joshua Williamson, and I'm here to talk to you about an exciting initiative coming to DC Comics in October. But I'm doing it with an old friend, Scott Snyder.
Hey man, God, you look so fancy. You're freaking me out.
Well, this is my show, and you're my guest. Right, I'm the host. You're my guest, so we're here to talk about comic books. So let's talk to everybody about
Yes,
All
so,
In.
bro.
This is something we've been working on forever. We've been working on it for a
Wow.
couple of years behind the scenes with some incredible creators,
I
and
won't.
we're just so excited to bring it to you. So what is All In?
What is All In?
All In is the biggest initiative that DC has done in the better part of a decade, honestly. Josh and I have both been really lucky over the years at DC to be a part of a couple initiatives. The difference between sort of an initiative and an event, also, an event is like a big blockbuster story that creates a couple open spaces. But an initiative is a moment when the entire company comes together to kind of create a moment, like a seismic tectonic moment at the company that sort of redefines it and tells one big story that invites everybody in to celebrate comics at once. And that's sort of what All In is going to be.
It's called
Every
a
initiative
relaunch.
has its purpose, and for us, All In is a rallying cry. All In is about reminding everybody that this medium, that comics, is where the biggest stories are told. It's where the characters are reborn, renewed, where the biggest legacy storytelling happens over and over and over. It's the greatest
Would you
continuing
just
story in the
to a
world.
classic?
Yeah, and one of the
Justice
things that we've
League
always talked
cover?
about the
Yeah.
last few years
Wow.
is that whenever somebody
Wow,
tries to do
wow.
an initiative,
It
they always either try to
inspired
do
the
something brand
Fantastic
new with new
Four
stuff, or they try to
and
do
all
stuff that
comic
always
books that
embraces the
came
classic.
after it.
And one of the conversations that Scott and I were having the last few years was like, how do we do both? How do we do a new story that introduces all of these pieces of like brand new stuff, but really elevates all these classic pieces that we really love?
It starts with story. For us, like every great initiative has a character, has a
Starts with money.
sensibility, but it's a story. It's about creating something that opens up opportunity for creators to come in, do stories that they want to do in the best way and the biggest way possible. Again, an initiative like this, like All In, is about inviting everybody in, all the existing creators, some new creators, everything, to tell their best stories and to begin them all at one point. The idea is to create the greatest jumping on point for you guys in many, many, many years, where DC will be starting all kinds of books, like brand new books in your continuing series, the series that you love. There is no reboot, there is no retcon, but they will have new story arcs beginning in October. Everything begins there, and it all starts with the All In #1 special.
And that's one of the things, like right now we're in the middle of this awesome Absolute Power event with Mark Waid and Dan Mora, and they're totally killing it. Awesome storytelling there. And that actually ends with some really big moments for the DCU. And that's where we start picking things up with All In #1 in October. It's going to be a flip book. Scott and I co-wrote all of it, but it's a flip book where one side is being done by Daniel Sampere, who is awesome, who I did Dark Crisis with. He's killing it on Wonder Woman. And the other side is being done by Wes Craig, who is an awesome artist. And we're really excited. When you guys see the pages for this, it's going to blow your mind. Now, on the Daniel Sampere side, that side is going to focus on what is going on in the current DCU post-Absolute Power. And you're going to get to see a lot of this through the eyes of Superman. We're going to see some teases of the new storylines that are coming up. But it's all with Superman. The other side of the story is all through the point of view
All
of
right.
Darkseid.
This special, what it really does is it
Bring it on.
reintroduces Darkseid as sort of who he should be, right? The greatest villain in the DCU, the end of all things, and there have been some amazing stories about him, but what we kind of came up with, along with a bunch of great creators, Mark Waid and everybody else kind of working on the lead up to it, is that during the events of Absolute Power, unbeknownst to the superheroes, Darkseid starts to realize that something has always been missing. He senses something in a special moment during Absolute Power that we don't want to spoil. but he senses something has changed. And once he realizes this, it sets him off on a quest that's going to bring him into direct conflict with this new Justice League that Superman is setting up, this more robust Justice League. And the collision between those two forces will reshape the DC cosmology in a brand new way, in a radical way, in a way that we're really excited about. And in the midst of that, it will create, one thing it creates is a dangerous, wild new planet, a new DC universe, where we've invited in some of the biggest names in comics and some rising stars to reinvent the characters in personal and passionate and daring ways, all in one shared space, and as part of a bigger story that we'll be telling over the course of the next few years. That's the thing to understand. A great initiative. It launches a story, begins with a story, and that story creates a driving force for the company for years to come. And that's what we're trying to do here. This story about the kind of collision between Darkseid, the Justice League, and what that engenders is going to be something that's going to shape the DC universe for quite a while.
And that's one thing that's really important about this initiative, is that even though we have these two worlds, we're telling one big meta story. And part of that new world is the Absolute World. And so, Scott, let's talk about the Absolute World a bit, and let's talk about your book, Absolute Batman.
Yeah. Oh, so it's been a lot of fun architecting all this stuff with you and everybody else. But one part of it is this is the Absolute Universe. So the Absolute Universe, what is it? Without giving too much away, because you've got to pick up the special to see how it's created. If the main universe is sort of predicated on Superman energy, right, and the sort of metaverse concept that was introduced before in Doomsday Clock and elsewhere, then this universe is kind of founded on Darkseid energy. Now, Darkseid energy, the Omega beams, they zigzag, they're chaotic, they're dangerous, they're wild, and that's the spirit of this universe. In this universe, the heroes come up in ways that make them underdogs. They have a lot less of the comforts and things that they have in the main universe. Without spoiling things in each of the books, they have to be tougher, they have to be more resourceful, they've got to shine brighter, and it makes them more badass, and it's fun. It's two universes, one prophecy. So we've invited in a lot of people that want to embrace that spirit, and they're going to blow you away with the takes that they've created for these characters, for Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, and on and on. We can't wait for you to see what we came up with.
When you guys see Nick Dragata's art on Absolute Batman, it is going to blow your mind. It is primal. This is not the Batman you know. He is a beast, and it's really, really exciting. Batman. And one of the things that we've been talking about, you might have heard us say Superman a lot. And Superman is going to be a really important part of the stories moving forward, past All In. And I am still going to be writing Superman. I'll be writing the main Superman title. And now I'll be joined by Dan Mora, the artist, one of the best artists at DC, will come in and play with me on Superman for a while. And we're going to be doing some really big new stories in Superman. One of the things is we're going to be introducing a new Superwoman. That'll be a big mystery of who the new Superwoman is and how she got her powers. But also we're going to have a return of Doomsday. One of my favorite comics of all time is Superman. And getting to play with Doomsday and doing some really cool big action sequences of Doomsday is very, very exciting. And there's going to be one of the biggest stories I've ever done at DC will be in the Superman title. One of the things, along with doing Superman, is, like Scott said earlier, we're going to be doing a lot of new stories starting in October. There'll be a bunch of jumping on points across the entire line. For me, when I came back to DC with Rebirth and I was working on Flash, I felt like I was the new kid. And one of the best parts of the last few years has been watching all of these new talent and new creators coming into the DCU. And one of the things that's the best part about doing a new initiative is that what I've learned is that initiatives create opportunities. And it's been really awesome watching a lot of these new creators grab this opportunity and run with it and tell some really, really amazing stories. And so you're going to get a lot of new books, new creative teams, and new stories starting up in October.
The biggest thing we want to kind of communicate to you guys is this is not a retcon or a reboot or something like that. It's a celebration and expansion of the great storytelling that's been happening at DC. What it is it's an invitation to jump in. What we were able to kind of do is create a story that in October will have every book starting a new arc. Some of them are continuing on the sort of storylines that they've been on, but will be a jumping on point. Some of them will be brand new books over in the Absolute Universe. There'll be new books in the main universe. We're going to have brand new origin stories. From October on, everywhere you look at DC Comics will be a story beginning, a place to start. There'll be incentives for retailers that will reveal at San Diego. There'll be incentives for you guys that will reveal at San Diego. But the goal of this, like I said at the beginning of this, is All In is a rallying cry. It's saying comics are awesome. Comics have been awesome. Comics will always be awesome. It will be the place where you can tell the biggest and best stories with these characters ever. And what we want is to communicate to you that right now we're all in as a company. All the creators, all the editors, everybody has bought into
That's a
this
good
idea of
short
let's
way to
all take
say
our
it.
biggest
We're all
swing
in.
together at one moment because we haven't done it in a while. Let's all launch our biggest stories, whether they're radical reinventions of the characters, whether they're continuing awesome legacy stories that are happening in the main DCU. Let's do all of it at once, all over the course of this period. We are all in. It's all in the books. It's all in the stores, and we're all in it together as fans and as creators and as retailers and everybody in the industry to say comics is awesome, and it always has been and it always will be, but this moment in particular is going to be more awesome than you can even imagine.
And like this right here, everything we're talking about, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Like this is just the beginning of what All In is and everything we're going to be talking to you about. There's going to be a lot of announcements this week. A lot of really cool stuff is going to be teased this week. And then we're going to get to San Diego Comic-Con, and there will be a lot of really, really great stuff at San Diego Comic-Con. We have a panel on Thursday at 12:45 at San Diego Comic-Con. You got to make sure you go to that. Like there's a lot of really cool stuff that's going to be coming to DC in October. And it all starts with DC All In Special #1.
And what happens in October? The New York Comic Con. Maybe DC will make a new appearance. What do you think of these new ideas?
Well, I mean, it would be great if DC finally showed up in a true presence in New York Comic Con. Marvel's been showing up, but you know they're not showing up as big as they once did. I remember years ago when those two would be some of the biggest companies. They would have like many of the rooms closed down for some of the properties from movies and TV shows.
The
and stuff that
DC
would come
whole
out.
section is gone.
Yeah, DC had its whole section. It was cool too because you go down there. You could also talk to the artists and the writers and the creators. But you know, let's call this what it is. This is basically they've decided the All In really means they're going to continue to do the old stuff, and they're going to come up with a new line, the ultimate line, like what Marvel has, where you can do whatever you want to do. They're saying that, hey, it's the dark side universe is a little chaotic, but basically you're saying, hey, we're going to let these new artists come in and writers come in and just think of, hey, how do I think of Batman? How do I think of Superman or Spider-Man? And come with different versions of them. Hey, you know, like I've always said before, these companies seem to be working hand in hand. One comes with a vampire story, the other one comes out with a vampire. One comes out with a story about zombies, the other one comes out with a zombie.
But you had a more succinct estimate of what this thing is, of having the regular universe and then having the absolute universe.
Chaos.
No. Like what in comic book public history had an existing publishing history and then having a new #1 startup at the same time. You said the ultimate universe.
I just said the ultimate universe.
Oh, I think
Yeah,
you
I just said,
chaotic.
I said the ultimate universe. I said that this is basically the ultimate universe. They're doing the original stuff and they're also doing the ultimate. It makes, we know what's going to happen. Eventually, they're just trying to find new ideas similar to the old ultimate. And I think what was the most successful title that came out of Ultimates?
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
But, they were trying to say, hey, we're going to pull it back so you can get Spider-Man starting from anew and having him younger, even though it kind of gathered so many barnacles as it went along. It had stuck on all this old continuity and bad breakups and all that stuff. Whereas this is like, we're going to give you a Dark Knight. We're going to give you Elseworld type stuff of these characters, but this is going to be an ongoing series where you get to see a bulky Batman with crazy bat wings, and ultimately, no pun intended, I think it's kind of like not, if you're doing a story where you come up with a dark side universe, like the way Kirby kind of had dark side was these almost like religious allegories. So it had stuff that was like the Greek gods, stuff that you find in the Bible, stuff you find in even earlier in Egyptian folklore. It was all of these stories that wasn't conventional to how we see things. And that would be interesting if that's what they were going to do, to kind of say, well, you can create your own, but keep in mind there has to be some sort of thing, like sort of like Stan Lee doing Just Imagine, where it's, it's Stan Lee creating it. What if Darkseid created it? This is just kind of like, well, we got Darkseid to start it, but these guys are getting to do their Elseworld however they want to do it. So
yeah, I mean, look, isn't this Future Shock? I mean, Future Shock was another version of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
They just did that, and I guess it died in the vine. But again, we did have a popular character, and that popular character was the Brazilian Amazonian character. I forgot her name. You know, they brought her in to the main universe. So it's you know, I don't know, man. It's like, to me, this stuff is it's just a cycle. They're gonna find something, but can it last? Can it stick? The question is, are there any characters that stand out? And you know, look, I'm all for it. I'm all for them trying new things. I know some people are saying, hey,
New things
burn.
with Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman.
Yeah, why not? Look, we got to remember, once again, with the comic book buyers, it's an older demographic. They're trying to get a younger demographic to buy. The younger demographic is skewing more towards YA books, well, that's Wimp Girls, but also towards you know, manga, you know, and more independent fare. So they got to try something to bring it in, and I totally get it. But you know, at the same time, are they doing in DC? I think one of the announcements they're making is that they're doing more formats of books. You know, where they're doing like YA books and they're doing manga-like books. So they're doing a bunch of different things
They're
to
not
try and bring
trying
in.
to do different books. They're doing it with the same.
They're utilizing the same content that they had before, but they're putting it in different forms. You know,
You can't do a manga book. The thing is that you don't have enough money to say, hey, we're going to take Batman from 400 to 500 and put it on the YA shelf, because at the same time they're like, oh, this is, some of these things are Bowser's. Some of these storylines aren't good. We don't want you to sit down. Let's put Batman Year One up there.
Yeah.
Let's put The Killing Joke. Let's put this thing. It's like, no, the whole part is having a shelf and say, you know what, we're going to start with one thing. We're going to take Batman and we're going to make it into a smaller volume and we're going to put it up there. We're going to take 300 to 400 or 300 to 403 and say all these volumes are up on the shelf. And then we'll see if it works and see if the younger, they go in there, right next to it is a whole run of, we got manga and a whole run of Batman things where they can read through and in black and white and see if they pull in. They got scans of it, so it doesn't cost them anything to try it, but they're like, no, we got to put 5 things of the Watchmen in a small volume. It's like, try to do something to make things work, not try to do something to say, here's the same content. I was going to insult the content. It's obviously high-end content, but I think ultimately the creators are having fun. They're having their big events. I'm not for the events because we've been tricked into having these huge events, and you can't do a simple story like some of the stuff. Like, kids look at some of the stories that happened in the 80s where, like, the Human Torch gets a request from a dying man on death row, and he investigates this murder that he was falsely accused of. And the Human Torch, who's not a detective, goes around, does some investigative work. Next thing you know, finds Hammerhead and stops him, and then he proves that the guy didn't actually kill a person. He goes to the guy's mother and says, you know, your son was killed and I wasn't able to get there in time to stop before he killed him. It's like, no, Torch, my boy was always bad. He might not have done this one, but it would have been someone after that. You're a good one, but my boy, no, you can't. That's why you did you were able to find it, but I know my boy. And it's like, and the shock to Johnny, because he wasn't thinking of himself as a good, who just was like, decided to do it just to do it. And it turns into more of a story about him. We can't get to those personal stories because we're trying to show you the history of the Joker, using Scott Snyder, that he was this age-old person that's been around so long, he knows Gotham from, head to toe, where he can sneak up on Batman and hit him in the back of the head, rather than say the Joker woke up today and decided he's going to terrorize, half of Gotham with a plan he has to start from scratch, not from something he's done for 3 million years. So I'm all for doing what you want, but I'm less for doing an event on top of the event to fall into all in and fall into absolute stuff than the stuff that ultimately the thing of comic books would be like, what's going on here, right? You got Keanu Reeves and Jason Aaron, and they have multitude of artists playing around in this thing. And maybe at some point, some other creator will come in and write it and do something like Spawn. You know, Spawn, for whatever reason, is still going, and he has other talent helping him, and he's directing
Spawn
it.
universe now.
So it's a lot of stuff happening, and that's what you have to try to do with comic books. Try to get a lineage where you're not falling into where in the past a creator would pick up stuff. It would be hard to tell what the difference between one creator was. There might be a little more energy to the book, but the person would pick up the title and it would just either be a little better, it'd be a little different direction, maybe a couple new characters in the Avengers, something like that.
So what do you think about like Dark Knight Death Metal? Wasn't that a very interesting event? You had characters like the Batman Who Lived, who became classic. You had the Robin. You had different. It seemed like a whole different event, and I thought that really worked in terms of.
There was
So I mean, I'm willing to give the point I'm trying to get to is that I'm willing to give this a try, because Scott Snyder was behind it, and it gave a whole new vision of what the heroes could or couldn't be. Of course, and that led up to Future State.
I don't think it was the best utilization of the characters and Greg Capullo. I think that Metal, which should have been like the nth Metal, is saying this is a Hawkeye event. So you start with Hawkeye, not Batman, right? And you know why you can start with Hawkeye and not Batman?
Why?
Because you have Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo who just did Court of Owls. So you take that success that you had and say, I'm doing the crossover with the nth Metal, and this is going to be centered around Hawkman. We can have Batman, we can have Superman and Wonder Woman, but centered around Hawkman. You look at this picture, it's nth Metal, but you find the nth Metal in the what's the name? No. You focus around Hawkman, you utilize the thing is like this. Creators in the past would be like, all right, hey, I did the X-Men. Now the X-Men is shooting, when he was on it didn't shoot past, but he was also testing his popularity to say, will they follow me if I leave the X-Men? And they did. And they say, will they follow me if I go to Alpha Flight? Which they did. Will they follow me if I go to Superman? Which was selling like, each title was selling like around over 100,000 books a year, right? And so that's the thing you had to challenge yourself as a creator. They were like, I'm gonna do Batman, Batman Knights, Darth Maul, this sort of thing. Now I wanna do another Batman thing. It's a crossover. So you can say, I'm gonna show just the same way, Jeff Johns did a Hawkman thing that was successful. So if you're at the top of the line, you're doing the nth Metal, you have a thing that has all the characters, you want to do a rock and roll thing, what?
No, I'm just trying to I think we're just going out of this would have been a story that you would have liked to create it then.
Not create, I'm saying I don't have a story for the nth Metal, but he had a story for nth Metal. So I'm saying, if I'm the editor and I'm saying to you, okay, you don't need to use Batman because, all right.
Why not? Why not? You haven't explained that.
Because the nth Metal deals with Hawkman. And you get to the Hawkman Noir, the Thanagarians, that sort of thing. You play around in that sandbox. This is the sandbox is. You don't take the nth Metal and put it in the Batcave.
But do most people know that? That's what I'm trying to say.
They know that the nth Metal is not in the Batcave.
It is now. It is now. So you can say what you want to say, but it is now.
I'm saying to you like this. The inherent story possibilities in dealing with Hawkman and the nth Metal leads you to building your story. It's like a reporter, right? Instead of saying, I know, Mars has a big, intricate criminal empire somewhere set up, and I'm going to find it, and at the same time, I already know that it's not actually him. It's a person that lives next door to him. But I'm saying I still need to find some of the questionable things about him. So I'm still going that way, where all my story is over there. So it's like the story, and this is the hard part of doing it, saying, am I going to do with the cool characters, or I'm popular enough to utilize my thing? He also has other comic stories that sell outside of just Batman. Why can't he just do something that wasn't?
This is turning into an anti-Batman thing.
It's not anti-Batman.
Let's bring it back to the dark, to what we originally started at, the absolute and all in. Okay. Can we pull you back into that?
Well, let's close it out. DC has a lot of energy. They have this absolute power. They have this absolute comics, and they also have all in. They've started with the first three that, of course, you do is Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, right? This is what you always do. You always count on that sort of thing. But you're doing new versions of these characters. You could utilize your celebrity to say, I want to do something else. We have this absolute thing. I'm bringing it back to what I was saying. These guys, not saying, hey, we're going to do an absolute Superman. I gave it a chance to say they're not connected to Darkseid, so why do we have to do an Elseworld Superman, an Elseworld Batman, an Elseworld Wonder Woman? Like, come on.
Well, so just so you know, the powers that be at DC are definitely going to always push the Trinity, right? Batman is clearly number one. He's the point of despair. You have Superman holding the right position.
Superman is number one.
And then you have
Batman is now the
biggest
bigger seller,
right.
But Superman is number one.
Batman has been the number one seller for decades now, okay? Since the 1980s, 90s, Batman has been selling, okay? So let's not pull back. Ever since Dark Knight, it's been a whole new world, okay?
No, I've already explained
From
that.
movies,
it took
from TV
a while
shows.
for it to actually catch.
But the whole point is, I'm saying,
And it didn't always catch. They had to have event after event to keep the thing going.
So because people liked it, and they kept on coming back. Because if they had the other one, they would have done the best for that. So going back, it's the corporation that wants these things to be continually pushed forward. So yes, probably Hawkman and Metal would have been a decent idea, but they didn't do it.
Not a decent idea. And he sees that there's a connection to it.
No, I see what you're saying, but I'm just saying I know before, but it doesn't matter. That's what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah, you're right. It totally doesn't matter. They're going to do what they want to do, and but at the same time, have your fun, but let's not. It doesn't feel like story. It feels like
we haven't even read the story. You can't knock something before you've even seen it. Look, I'm knocking it only on the premise.
Do you think that Secret Wars was based on story, where Jim Shooter would say it was based on a story?
All I'm saying, getting back to the thing, is that yes, it's the ultimate universe, and people are doing whatever they want to do. I'm still going to look and see whether there's something. They're kicking these tires and see how it looks. There's probably going to be some gem that comes out of there that's pretty good. They may want to be interested, with Scott Snyder being involved in it, and Williamson. Is Capullo? I don't think Capullo is involved in it, but
he's definitely, because he's at Marvel doing Wolverine. Like, this is the harder part, right? Think of Crisis, right? And as well as it was done, at the end of the day, all it was the coming of Galactus, right? Because in the Fantastic Four Coming of Galactus, they have the Watcher, right?
Wait, but Crisis is DC.
Yeah, we're talking about DC, right?
But you said Galactus. Galactus is...
But I'm saying they took the story of the Coming of Galactus, right? They have a Harbinger of Doom.
Harbinger,
They have Pariah, person who's like having this overly...
Psycho pirate.
Well, no, I'm saying basic, like he's like the Harbinger and... Harbinger and Pariah are two characters, so like take the place of the Silver Surfer. But there's the Monitor. You have the Watcher and the Monitor. You don't see that they're kind of the same character.
No, because the Monitor goes buck wild.
He's a monitor. He's monitoring something. One is a Watcher.
But
then you have they turned Galactus into just a mean, nasty, mean character who just instead of eating planet, he just destroys universes, right? So they just turned, as well as it was done, at the end of the day, it was DC's version of the coming of Galactus, but the Galactus is not beyond good or evil. He's just evil, right? And a lot of death and all this other stuff. So at the same time, it's not the best story. It was all done to do the clean house, and ultimately they didn't stick to the clean house, and George Perez was doing that. So I haven't got to a crossover that's necessarily the best that you can look at and say this makes sense. But they're gonna try and let him go. I got kind of upset about this when ultimately at first I thought it was okay, except for Superman. He looked too weird with the long hair.
Okay, I mean, it is. But I mean, just saying, what does that have to do with Absolute? With All In and Absolute?
They said it was a story, and I'm saying this is just them doing what the hell they want to do.
And they are. Simple as that, and they are.
Okay.
So, So, hey, I'm saying let's give it a shot. P is once again shooting down the balloon. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yep.
With the AK-47.
Yep.
Oh, excuse me, the AR-15. As we use
So,
So, hey, you guys make your choice.
Spin a rack.
Out.